Good morning, good morning, good morning. Great morning to all. We want to talk about today's lesson here today, which is how big is your hand? Now today, we want to show you some wonderful materials here, such as all you need is a ruler, a jar there where you can fill up with your hand in, water, as well as a writing utensil and something to draw with, such as it could be a piece of paper, poster board, whiteboard, you name it, to show the measurements. As well as we're going to be going over the basics within this picture. As you can tell, we're going to be focusing on the length, the volume, and the area of the hand. So this sit back, just focus, and it's going to be fun. I promise you that. So,
and remember, when you're at the club, we want everyone to feel like they belong. It's no different here online. Make sure you have permission from your parents or guardians to be on the channel and joining in with the Boys and Girls Club summer camp. If you have your Club on the Go bag, you might need some supplies in there. If not, you use supplies around the house. All right. And lastly, have fun. Take comments, show your pictures, send in your results. Are you ready? Awesome. Let's get started.
Okay, while we're getting started, allow me to introduce myself. I am Miss Leslie. This is also Miss Cindy, as well as Mr. Jeremiah here. So, shall we proceed? Yes, indeed.
Okay. So we're gonna learn how to measure the area of your hand, like Miss Leslie said, and it's going to involve different types of measuring. We are going to measure the length of our hand with a metric ruler. We're going to measure the volume of your hand in water, and we're going to measure the area. We have some poster board that has little squares on it. If you don't have squares, you can draw your squares later, but we're going to show you how to do it first. So we're going to look, like we said, we're going to look at different ways to measure and measuring instruments. And what do we mean by size? What is the size of something? Is it just long and short?
There's many ways. It can be big or tall, or
How wide?
How wide?
Wide, narrow. You know, it's various ways.
Skinny?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fatter?
Mm-hmm.
Like when they say you have meaty little hands when you're little. So, you know, it's a volume. Like some people's hand might be really thin and some people's hands might be thicker. Your foot might be longer than your parents might be shorter. So different sizes, you know, all different sizes in volume, length, and width. So when we say when something is big or small, what do we kind of mean? Like this jar is a big jar. Why are we calling it a big jar? It's not huge.
Well, just look at the space. You wouldn't say that's tiny.
Right, it holds a lot of water.
Yeah.
So we
Pretty
could
much.
have one that's the same height, but it might be skinnier and hold less water. So that would be different sizes. And the first one we're going to talk about is length. And length measures in one dimension, how far from one end point to another, like the length of this table, from one to another, or the length of a car, from the front to all the way to the end of the bumper. So that is length, from your head to your toe. Now we're going to talk about area. What does it mean to measure an area, Miss Leslie?
Basically, what's in thinking is what's in front of you. What's in front, what's the space of it, as you see, you know.
The space, like the area of the table would be the whole inside the car. I mean, inside the table or a car, the space inside the car. So that's what an area means. And then we have volume. Volume, it measures in 3-dimension, the amount of space an object occupies. So this water in this jar is the area. We're going to figure out the area of that jar. So how much that it can occupy. Like a swimming pool, you can measure. That's a perfect measure because you can measure how long a swimming pool is. Then you can measure the area, what's inside it. Then the volume is how much water goes in there and how many people can go in there and different things like that. So today we're going to use several different measuring instruments to practice measuring so we can answer 3 questions. How long is your hand? How much space does it cover? And how much water does it replace? That's an interesting one. Okay? So we're going to have me, Miss Leslie, and Mr. Jeremiah. We're going to estimate who has the largest and smallest hands based on length, area, and volume. And you're going to do the same. You're going to write the estimate of your hand. We're not measuring yet. An estimate is a guess. It's an educated guess. It's not right or wrong because we are guessing. And then we are going to really measure to see who was right, who was wrong, and what our guesses came out to be. So let's just look at our hands together. We're not even going to put them side by side. So let's see, Jeremiah, put your hand out. Let's see. So who do we think has the longest hand out of the 3 of us? I think Jeremiah's is the longest.
Yeah, I think his is long.
So on our chart, we're going to put our estimated length is going to be Jeremiah. I can't write very good. And I think Miss Leslie is next, and then me. So Jeremiah is the longest. Miss Leslie is second to longest, and mine is the second longest. So the shortest, we just do the opposite. I have the shortest. Then Miss Leslie in the middle. I don't think I'm doing this right. And then Mr. Jeremiah. Okay. Who has the largest hand? Who do we think has the largest hand? I guess that means the amount of space that it takes up.
Let's see.
It's kind of a tie.
It's like a tie.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Jeremiah. So his is the longest. Let's say his is going to be the largest too.
Right. Okay.
We'll just put that. So we're going to find out the truth. And mine is the smallest. And Leslie is still in that
in the middle
spot.
Still in the little spot. Hey, it's a good spot. At least you're
measuring length there. Okay, just make sure I got it right. And who do we think when we put it in the water, whose hand is going to take up the most space? Who's going to make the water rise the highest?
I feel you're going to win.
Let's keep it kind of like the same. I think Jeremiah is going to take up the greatest space, then Leslie, then Miss Cindy. And it's going to go on the opposite up here. Okay. So, measuring length, measuring area. Okay. So now we are going to actually get down to the real measurement to prove these guesses or these estimations. Okay, first we're going to use this ruler and we're going to turn this paper over so we can see so you can just see how we measure it. So you want to use the part that has centimeters. We're going to measure in centimeters. So find your ruler and find the side that says cm for centimeters. Okay? So I'm going to put my hand down on the paper and you're going to measure from your longest finger to probably about your wrist bone right here. So let's see, I'm going to put it on there and my wrist bone is about right here. Let's see, right there. So that's going to be 17 centimeters. So I'm going to write my name, and my length was 17 centimeters. Okay, so Miss Leslie, let's measure yours.
Okay. Let's see.
Jeremiah. And you can do this with a couple people in your house so that you have more measurement to see. Okay?
Okay, dokie.
Start at the tip of your finger.
All right. Let's see. Start tip.
And go to about your wrist bone, which is right here. So it's 19.
Oh.
19 centimeters. All right, so now let's see what Jeremiah, the length of Jeremiah's hand is. Let's start with his middle finger. Don't try to stretch that hand out, Jeremiah.
Oh.
See his wrist bone?
I see that.
That's about
It's about
20. 20. Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to write 20 centimeters. Okay? So once you got on, we're not going to really look at it right now on our chart. We're just going to record our answer. So we're not going to see who got the longest or anything just yet. We're going to go over our next measurement. And this is going to be measuring with the area. So we're going to measure our area with, we have a poster board that has little charts. Sometimes you can use graph paper, or you can print out a paper with squares. Or once you do your hand, then you can go and calculate the squares. So we're all just going to draw our hand random. We're going to take turns drawing our hand. Start from your same spot where you measured it, and you can spread your fingers out or close them because you're going to trace your fingers. So either way, you're still going to use the same amount of space. So everybody's going to draw their hand. I'm going to put my name next to my hand so we'll know the difference. Okay? And everybody's going to trace their hand. And you can trace your hand while we're tracing ours. And if you have someone else, like your parent or your brother and sister, y'all can all trace your hands right now also. Can you get it on there?
Yeah.
Jeremiah is the only one writing all over his hand.
Well,
You got yours a little bit?
yeah, a little bit. Got a little green. Wear a little green today.
And you can do this in pencil, pen, or marker. We did it in marker so it could show you.
My wrist is not really that small.
It was like.
Oh.
So, write his name.
Your name.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after you have traced everybody's hand on a piece of paper, if you have the square paper, if you don't, you can put your squares in later. Then we can close off our wrists so we can see, and then we're gonna go count the little squares in between. Count all the whole squares first. Then if you have any half squares, you're gonna count them and add them to another half square. So y'all can start counting y'all's, and we're gonna count. You need a pen?
Yes.
Let me see.
Let's see. Thank you.
If you have two half squares, then you can just join them together and count that as one number. If you have three little pieces of square, like I said, you can count all three of them as one square. So just kind of estimate on your half squares. We're writing our numbers on it so it's easier to see how we calculated each square, but if you're good enough to count it and remember it, you can do it that way too. And then write your number down below your name. All right, write your number below your name. All right, so Miss Leslie, what did you come up with?
I came up with 90.
With 90 squares, and it might not be exact because those little half squares, we're just doing kind of a close estimate. If you want to be detailed, you could sit there and put the squares together like that. So Jeremiah, let me see the marker, and I'm gonna put up.
Okay.
90 for Miss Leslie, so the area of her hand was 90 centimeters because we're using little squares. And Jeremiah, what was yours?
Mine was 100 flat.
100.
Wow.
Jeremiah had 100 centimeters, and mine was 80. So that sounds about right to our estimate. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this, but this is what our hands look like when we counted our little squares. So we counted our squares, and then our little half squares, we just kind of put them together and got all of our numbers. So yours should look something like that. So next, what we're going to do is we are going to find out the volume of our hand. And you're like, the volume? How are you going to find out the volume? Well, we are going to use water to see how much space our hand takes up in the water. So now we're going to add water to our jar for our volume part. So you want a container like this. If you have a smaller hand, you can get a little jar, whatever you can fit your hand down up to your wrist. Since we have bigger hands, we're going to use a bigger jar. Get a measuring cup, and we're going to measure at least enough to put my hand, so I need it up to here. So I have 1. You want to keep track of how many cups you put in. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you might not need as much water as we do. We just have a bigger jar. 9, 10. You want it to at least come up to your wrist. 10, 11, 12. I'm gonna put one. I'm gonna put 2 more. 12, 13, 14. So I don't like the number 13. All right, and then you have it in there. So as long as you put your hand up next to it and it comes up to your wrist, that's all you need in your jar, whatever size jar you need. Once you're done, you're going to take a marker.
What you want? Want to try this one?
I need a white top. And you're going to mark the spot where your water is, okay? That's where your water started. Then what you're going to do, and if you have several people, you might have to add water back in and water out. So it's right here, and we have 14 cups of water in here. So you're going to write that down, 14 cups. And we can write that equation on here, 14 cups. So next, you're going to insert your hand into the water, and you can put it in a fist or you can put it out because it's going to be the same thing. It's not how long or how we just want to. The water's going to move when we do this. So we're going to put our hand in the water, and the water is going to move up. Once the water moves up, we are going to draw a line, draw a new line, and you can draw it in a different color so you know where it is, of where the water is, okay? So mark where the new water is. Take your hand out, and the water should go down to the first line that you drew. So once it goes back down to the second level, we have to measure the water and bring it back up to this level. So I'm going to do it 1 cup at a time. This is 1 cup. Still not there, so we're going to do another cup. And you should have wrote how many cups you started out with first. So, okay, it's at the line. So I added 2 more cups to go back to the water. So Ms. Leslie, can we look at we started out with 14 cups.
Yes.
And I had to add 2 cups back to it. Okay? Okay, so we started out with 14 cups in our jar. Your amount might be different. So you take the amount of water you started with and how many cups you had to add back in, which was 2. So then we're going to subtract that. We're going to subtract 2 from 14, and we have 12. So my hand had a volume of 12 milliliters, because milliliters is the word for volume, how you measure in volume. It's not centimeters, because centimeters is on a ruler in length. When you're measuring water or liquid, it's milliliters. So my hand was 12 milliliters. So now we're going to move on to Miss Leslie. And since we had to add 2 cups for mine, Miss Leslie's going to start out with 16 cups.
Okay. Awesome.
So Miss Leslie has 16 milliliters of water in here. So now Miss Leslie is going to put her hand in the water.
All right.
And we're going to see how far it goes up. I'm going to erase my mark so that, well, no, we want to put that mark. So it's her new water level. Okay. And she's going to insert her hand.
All righty. Ready. All right. Ooh. Coldness. Coldness. All right.
All right. So now we are going to mark her new water level. And it looks like it might have went up a little bit more from when I put my hand in there. So we're going to take her hand out. And now we got to fill the jar up with water to see how many milliliters she was missing. Okay, so that's 1 cup. Got more water right here. 2 cups. Oh, I think hers might be 3 cups.
Uh-oh.
3 cups. There it is. All right. So Miss Leslie had a difference of 3 cups. So she started out with 16 milliliters, and she had to add 3 more milliliters. So 16 minus 3 is
13.
13 milliliters for Miss Leslie. So in order to get our new water level, we started out with 16, then we added 3, so 16 plus 3 is 19. So Jeremiah is starting with 19 milliliters of water. So Jeremiah's starting out with 19 milliliters of water. Hopefully he doesn't overflow it. Let's see. Oh, so let's write his new level, which is right here. All right, and let's remove your hand. Looks pretty close to Miss Leslie's. 1 cup.
Right.
2 cups.
Awesome.
That's interesting.
Wow.
So Jeremiah's only had to have 2 cups added to his. So then we got to do it backwards. We got to subtract the amount that we added. So 19 minus 2 is 17.
Yes.
So he has 17 milliliters left in his jar. So now let's record it. We did, we're going to our volume. So Miss Cindy had 12 milliliters. And remember, milliliters is how we measure liquid. Centimeters was area and length. Okay, so we did, Miss Cindy had 12 milliliters. Miss Leslie had 13 milliliters. And Mr. Jeremiah had 17 milliliters. So let's look at our comparison. We said Mr. Jeremiah had the longest and his length was 20. So he did have the longest, and Miss Leslie had 19 centimeters length. and Miss Cindy had 17. So we were right on our estimation of our length. Now with our area we said Mr. Jeremiah's was the largest, then Miss Leslie, then Miss Cindy. So let's look. Miss Cindy had 80 centimeters squared. So I was the shortest, the smallest area. Then Miss Leslie had 90 centimeters squared. So she was in the middle, and Mr. Jeremiah had a whopping area of 100 centimeters. So his hand did take up the most area. I bet you he could really dribble a basketball. So then we're going to look at the volume, how much water we took up. Up here we had the same thing. Mr. Jeremiah had the greatest volume, Miss Cindy had the least, and Miss Leslie in the middle. And we were correct again. Mr. Jeremiah had a 17 milliliter lead with Miss Leslie at 13 milliliters, and me right behind Miss Leslie just by 1 milliliter at 12. So me and Miss Leslie were pretty close, even though we were 10 centimeters apart in area, because our thickness of our hand might be pretty close to the same. So that just shows you that you can't base a weight or size just on looks, that it might vary in the muscle tissue, the weight of your hand, if you have skinny fingers or plumpy fingers. So it's all different, but it's a pretty good thing to find out the water, the volume. And you can do it with your whole body in the pool, but you can't measure all that water in the pool. So finish your chart up if you have any people that in your house that you were doing this experiment with, and now you know how to do all that, and I hope you enjoyed learning today. Post your results and your handprints, and you can do everything. You can do your feet, or you can do your whole body, measure your whole body, and that would be a really good experiment. And I hope you had fun today, and come back for more videos, and we'll see you next time. Until then, happy measuring.